The report arrived on Commander Veth Sorel's desk on a Tuesday morning by the human calendar, which was the only calendar that mattered anymore on Joint Command Station 11. Because humans had built the station, and humans ran most of its operations, and humans had a tendency to organize everything around their own timekeeping, whether anyone else found it convenient or not. Veth Sorel found it deeply inconvenient. He found most things about humans deeply inconvenient. It was real, which meant he was large and slow-moving and communicated through ground vibrations, and had spent the first 40 years of his military career operating in environments where everyone around him was also droll, and therefore also large and slow-moving and communicating through ground vibrations. He had understood those environments completely. He did not understand this one. He looked at the report. It was titled Analysis of Human Combat Behavioral Anomalies. Preliminary Findings, Joint Xena Military Research Division, Year 3. He had commissioned the report himself, 18 months ago, because he was a senior non-human officer on Joint Command Station 11, and it was his job to understand the humans he was supposedly commanding alongside, and he had realized, approximately 6 weeks into the posting, that he did not understand them at all, not their tactics. He understood their tactics. Humans were creative tacticians, unpredictable, adaptive, occasionally brilliant, occasionally reckless, to the point of what he could only describe as insanity, but understandable within a military framework once you adjusted your parameters significantly enough. Not their technology. He understood their technology. It was impressive, advancing faster than any civilization he had encountered in 60 years of military service, built on a foundation of creative problem-solving that he had come to respect even when it made his structural vibration-based communication systems obsolete every 18 months. What he did not understand was why they fought the way they fought. Not the tactics of it, the reason of it. In 60 years of military service, Veth Sorel had commanded or served alongside soldiers from 11 different species. Every one of them fought for reasons he could understand. For a territory. For resources. For political orders from legitimate authority. For survival. For the protection of their species as an abstract concept. These were comprehensible reasons. They mapped onto military motivation frameworks that had been developed and refined over hundreds of thousands of years of galactic conflict theory. Human soldiers did not fight for any of these reasons, or rather, they also fought for these reasons. Sometimes, when asked, in after-action debriefs and official reports. But the actual motivation that drove their behavior in the field was something different, something he had been watching for 3 years and could not categorize. He read the report. It was 400 pages long. He read all of it. By the time he finished, it was late into the station's night cycle, and he had consumed 3 nutrient supplements and developed a vibration headache that he attributed to concentrating too hard on information that kept refusing to resolve into sense. He read the conclusion again. It said, human soldiers do not, in practice, fight primarily for orders, ideology, territory, resources, or species survival. Observational data across 3 years and 47 combat engagements indicates that the primary operational motivator for human soldiers in active combat is the survival and well-being of the specific individuals immediately around them. In short, humans fight for each other. Not for humanity, not for the mission, for the person next to them. This motivation consistently overrides tactical logic, self-preservation, instinct, and direct orders when those things come into conflict with the safety of a fellow soldier. We cannot currently explain this within existing motivational frameworks. We recommend further study. Veth Sorel set the report down. He thought about it for a long time. Then he did something he had not done in 60 years of military service. He went to ask for help, understanding something he did not understand. The human he went to find was Staff Sergeant Amara Use, who was the senior human NCO on Joint Command Station 11, and who had been, in Veth Sorel's 3 years of observation, consistently the most likely human to give him a straight answer to a direct question without the elaborate social performance that many humans seemed to feel was required when talking to a drill general. He found her in the training bay at what humans called zero, which was very early by most standards, and apparently very normal by human NCO standards, doing something she called maintenance, PT, that involved lifting heavy things repeatedly, for reasons she had explained to him once, as keep the body ready and the mind quiet. He waited until she stopped lifting the heavy things. She looked at him, then at the report under his arm. You read the behavioral analysis, she said. I commissioned it, he said. I know. She reached for a water container. What do you want to know? Everything, he said. From the beginning. Amara Yusei was 34 years old, and had been a soldier for 14 of those years. She was not tall by human standards, but she had the specific physical quality that Veth Sorel had come to associate with experienced human soldiers. A settled completeness. Like a structure that had been tested enough times to know exactly how much weight it could carry. She looked at him for a moment. "Tense aside, buy me breakfast and I'll talk." He did not eat human food. He told her this, she said. "Then stand there while I eat and pay attention." They sat in the station mess, which was quiet at this hour, mostly empty, except for a few humans on odd shift cycles, nursing coffee and staring at nothing. Amara ate something involving eggs and bread, and ate it with the focused efficiency of someone who treated food as fuel and conversation as the actual point. "The report is correct," she said. As far as it goes, he repeated. "It describes what we do. It doesn't explain why." She drank her coffee. "Those are different problems." "Explain why," he said. She was quiet for a moment. Not evasive, quiet. Thinking, quiet. "Have you ever been in combat?" she asked. 60 years of military service, he said. "That's not what I asked. Have you personally been in combat? Ground level, where you could see the individuals around you?" A pause. "Early in my career." "Yes. When you were in it," she said. "What did you think about?" He considered this carefully, because it was not a question he had been asked before, and it deserved a careful answer. "The tactical situation. The objective, the orders I had received and how to execute them most effectively." Amara nodded slowly. "Did you think about the soldiers next to you? In tactical terms? Their positions, their roles in the operation?" "As assets," she said, "not as people." He considered this. "The distinction is not one that draws military culture typically." "I know," she said. Not dismissively. Just acknowledging. "That's the difference." She set her coffee down. "When humans are in combat, real combat, close combat, the kind where everything is loud and fast and nothing is going the way it was supposed to, we don't think about the objective. We don't think about the orders. We stop thinking about tactics." She paused. "We think about the person next to us. We think about whether they're okay. We think about what we need to do to make sure they stay okay." Veth Sorel processed this. "That is tactically inefficient," he said. The objective gets completed," Amara said. "That's what the report shows. Despite or maybe because of the fact that we're fighting for each other and not for the objective. The objectives get completed, sometimes better than they would if we were thinking about them directly." She paused. "Have you ever noticed that human units perform better in their third and fourth engagements together than in their first?" He had noticed. He had attributed it to experience and improved tactical coordination. "It's not tactics," Amara said. "Or not only tactics. It's that, by the third engagement, we know each other. We've eaten together and complained together and told each other about our families and irritated each other and helped each other. By the third engagement, the person next to us is not a fellow soldier." There, she stopped. Seemed to be choosing words. "There's someone we would cross any line for," she said finally. "Someone we would break any rule for. Someone we would do the tactically insane thing for. The thing that no training manual recommends and no general would order, because they need us too, and we cannot watch them die if there is anything at all we can do about it." Silence in the mess. Someone's coffee cup clinked. "This is a source of your tactical unpredictability," Veth Sorel said slowly. "A lot of it, yeah." In the third engagement at Corvus Ridge, he said he had been reviewing records all night. Preparing for this conversation, Corporal Harris left a covered position to retrieve a wounded soldier under direct fire. The wounded soldier was not an officer, was not carrying critical equipment, was not tactically significant to the outcome of the engagement. He paused. "Harris was decorated for the action." "Yes," Amara said. "By the logic of every military framework I have studied in 60 years of service, Harris should have been disciplined. The action was tactically indefensible. Harris could have been killed. The position could have been compromised." "Yes," Amara said again. "But Harris was decorated because Harris did what we do," she said simply. "Harris saw someone who needed help and went. The fact that it was dangerous was not a reason not to go. It was just the condition of going." She looked at him steadily. "We don't leave people behind. That's not a rule we follow. It's something deeper than a rule." "Explain deeper than a rule," he said. Amara was quiet for a moment. "Rules come from outside," she said. "They're things you're told, things you can be ordered to follow or ordered to break. Things that exist because someone decided they should exist and can be unmade by someone deciding they shouldn't." She paused. "What humans feel about each other in combat is not a rule. It was never decided. Nobody wrote it down first, and then humans started following it. She seemed to struggle. It just is. It's there, before anything else. It's the thing underneath everything else. Veth Soral processed this for a long time. The research team, he said, could not categorize it within existing motivational frameworks. No, Amara said. I read a draft. What framework would you use? She smiled. It was a small smile, slightly tired, the kind that came from being asked to explain something that felt, from the inside, like it should be so. Love, she said. He was quiet. That is not a military term, he said finally. No, she agreed. It's not, but it's the accurate one. He sat with this. Around them, the mess was beginning to fill slightly as the station's morning cycle advanced. Humans arriving in ones and twos, collecting coffee, exchanging words, the low constant hum of a community, doing what communities do, in the in-between spaces of the day. Veth Soral watched them. He had been watching humans for 3 years. He had watched them in briefing rooms, in training bays, in combat simulations, and actual combat in recreational spaces and mess halls exactly like this one. He had been watching and cataloging and trying to understand. He had been watching the wrong thing. He had been watching what they did. He had not been watching what was between them while they did it. He watched, now. The 2 soldiers at the corner table, one explaining something with their hands, while the other laughed. The group near the coffee station, 3 of Tim. One looking tired in a way that the other 2 had clearly noticed because they had positioned themselves on either side. Without apparent discussion, a physical bracketing that said, without words, we are here. The soldier sitting alone near the window who was looking at a photograph, and the other soldier who stopped on the way past, said something brief, received a nod, put a hand briefly on the solitary soldier's shoulder, and moved on. Constant. Continuous. Automatic. The monitoring of each other. The noticing. The small adjustments. The 1,000 tiny acts of caring for the person nearby that happened so naturally and so constantly that the humans themselves probably did not register most of them as acts at all. Just as breathing, you do it all the time, he said. Not just in combat. Yes, Amara said. It does not turn off. No? She looked at him. Why would it? He did not have an answer to that. He thought about his own military service. 60 years of it. The Dral operated on clear hierarchy, clear function, clear role. You knew your place in the structure. You executed your function. The structure protected you because it needed you to function. You were significant insofar as you were useful. It had never occurred to him to frame it differently. It had never felt like it was missing something. He was beginning to wonder if it had been missing something. In the engagement at Vega Corridor, he said, returning to the reports, because reports were something he understood how to work with, your unit was outnumbered 3-1. You held the corridor for 6 hours until reinforcement arrived. The tactical analysis cannot account for how. Amara said nothing. The unit sustained 40% casualties in the first hour, he continued. By conventional military modeling, unit cohesion should have degraded significantly. Combat effectiveness should have dropped to below operational threshold. The unit should have fallen back or surrendered. We didn't, Amara said. No. You held. Because of the 40%, she said quietly. He looked at her. The ones we lost in the first hour, she said. We held the corridor for them. Because they gave everything they had to hold it for that first hour so the rest of us could keep holding it. Because letting the corridor fall after what they gave would have meant, she stopped. Meant what? He said. It would have meant they died for nothing, she said. And we could not allow that. So, we held. The mess had gotten noisy around them. The normal noise of a military station, morning voices, movement, the clatter and hum of a community in motion. Veth Soral sat in the middle of it and felt, for the first time in 60 years of military service, that he was understanding something he had not understood before. The casualties did not reduce your effectiveness, A sighed slowly. They increased it. Yes, Amara said, because you were no longer fighting for the objective. We were never fighting for the objective. You were fighting for them, he said. The ones you lost, and the ones still standing, she said. Both. Always both. She looked at her coffee. The ones we lost make us fight harder for the ones still here. And the ones still here make us hold on for the ones we lost. She paused. It feeds itself. It's not logical. I know, it's not logical, but it's real. He was quiet for a long time. I have to tell you something, he said finally. She looked at him. When I commissioned the research report, he said, my intention was to find a way to replicate what human soldiers do in other species units. To identify the mechanism, and apply it more broadly. I know, Amara said. That's what military researchers always want. I do not believe it can be replicated, he said. Not mechanically. Not by identifying the mechanism and applying it. Because the mechanism is not a technique. It is not a training protocol. It is not a policy or a doctrine or a framework. No, she agreed. It is not. It requires. He stopped. Started again. It requires that you actually care. Not as a strategy. Not as a method. Actually, genuinely care about the specific person. About whether they live or die. About what happens to them. He paused. This is not something that can be trained into a soldier who does not already feel it. No, Amara said. It can't. Then how? He said. Do you produce it? How does humanity produce soldiers who feel this way? Amara looked at him for a long moment. We don't produce it, she said. We just don't train it out. She leaned forward slightly. Humans come that way. We come caring about each other. It's the default. It's what we are before anything else is added. She paused. Military training in most cultures, including yours, from what I understand, spends a significant amount of effort teaching soldiers not to feel, not to be affected by casualties, not to be compromised by caring about the individual when the mission requires sacrifice. She met his eyes. We tried that historically. For a long time, we tried to make soldiers who didn't feel, Saeed. They fought worse, she said simply. They performed worse. They broke faster. They held shorter. The research, our own research, going back centuries, kept showing the same thing. Soldiers who care about each other fight better than soldiers who don't. Units that are bonded fight harder than units that are merely disciplined. The thing we kept trying to eliminate because it seemed like a weakness was the thing that made us most effective. C'est pas usé? So we stopped trying to eliminate it, she said. And we started training around it, assuming it would be there. Building tactics that accounted for it. Creating structures that fed it, rather than suppressed it. She looked at him steadily. We took the thing that every other military tradition called a flaw, and we decided it was a feature. Veth Seral was quiet for a very long time. Around them, the morning continued. The station breathed. The humans moved through it the way water moves, constantly adjusting, constantly aware of each other. The thousand small noticings and accommodations and moments of connection that happened so naturally that they were invisible unless you were looking for them. He had been looking for 3 years. He was only now beginning to see. I have a request, he said. Amara raised an eyebrow. My unit, he said. The drawl officers under my command, I would like to request that our units train together more regularly. Not joint operations exercises. Daily training, eating together. The between things, the parts that are not the mission. Amara looked at him for a moment. You want your soldiers to get to know my soldiers? She said. I want my soldiers to experience what your soldiers experience, he said carefully. I cannot train them to care about each other the way humans do. I cannot replicate the mechanism, but I can put them in proximity to humans who do it naturally, and he paused. Perhaps it is something that can be learned by observation, by being around it, by experiencing being on the receiving end of it long enough that it becomes. He searched for the word, familiar. Amara was quiet for a moment. Then sighed. My unit is doing a training run at Z. Tell your people to show up. He stood, inclined his head in the droll gesture of acknowledgement and respect. Thank you, he said. Don't thank me yet, she said. They're going to be confused. My people or yours? Both, she said. For a while, she looked at him, but confusion pasas. And what comes after it? She stopped. Smiled. What comes after it is the whole point, she said. He went to brief his officers. She finished her coffee. Outside the mess windows, the stars hung in the dark, the way they always did. Vast, indifferent, ancient. The war that was happening in them was vast and old too, fought across distances so large that individual soldiers were statistically invisible, tactically insignificant, replaceable in any operational calculus that operated at the scale of fleets and systems and civilizations. In the mess, 2 soldiers cleared their trays. One of them looked tired. The other noticed, said something. The tired one shook their head. The other one said something else. The tired one paused, then nodded. They walked out together. The stars didn't notice. The war didn't notice. But something had happened. Something small and unremarkable and completely invisible to any strategic analysis or military framework or research report in any archive in the galaxy. Something that happened 10,000 times a day, among human soldiers, without anyone counting or naming or studying it. Something that could not be explained within existing frameworks, because it existed before frameworks, before orders, before objectives, before anything that military science had developed to describe why soldiers fight. Something that went, I see you. I notice you. You matter to me. Not as an asset. Not as a need. Not as a tactical resource. As a person. As the specific, irreplaceable, impossible to replicate person who is standing next to me right now, in the middle of this war. And as long as I am standing, you will not stand alone. That was the whole of it. That was the thing that 400 pages of research could describe but not explain. That made units hold corridors they should have abandoned and soldiers cross open ground under fire and commanders stay when every order said leave. That was the thing that no military in the galaxy had been able to replicate because no military in the galaxy had started from the same place. Had started from the assumption that the person next to you matters. Not because they are useful. Not because the mission requires it. Not because you are ordered to feel it. But because they are there and you are there and that is enough. That has always been enough. That will always be enough. We fight for each other. Not for orders. Not for ideology. Not for territory or resources or the abstract survival of a species we will never fully comprehend. For the person next to us. For the one on our left and the one on our right, and the one who didn't make it and the one who is still here and the one we haven't met yet but will. Eventually, stand next to in some corridor or some field or some dark place where the only light is each other. We fight for them. We have always fought for them, we will always fight for them. And that is something the universe has never seen before and cannot fully account for and will never completely understand. And that is exactly why we win. Not because we are strongest, not because we are smartest, but because we love each other. And love, it turns out, is the most tactically effective force in the known galaxy. We never stop, not the fighting, and not the loving. Never.